let's get started. Thank you so much, Martina, for being a part of this conversation on mental health today. It's great to have you.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it. It's really important.
It's good to see you in this way. And maybe just to get started, we could each introduce yourselves. You could perhaps say your name, preferred pronouns if you like, what you do for the college, and maybe how long you've been here. And then I'll do the same and talk a little, just give a little brief context for these conversations.
Sure. So I'm Martina Duncan, she, her, hers. And I've been, I'm the registrar at the college, and I've been at the college since 2012, but in a couple different roles. So I didn't start in the registrar's office. And I am also a graduate of the college. So, but I did not, 97. So I graduated, did a whole bunch of other things, came back.
Nice. Thank you. And I'm Roland Mendiola. I use he, him, his pronouns. I serve as a clinical psychologist and the interim director at Counseling and Wellness. And just a little bit about what the initial sort of impetus was for developing these conversations. We wanted to sort of explore issues of mental health, something that we altogether don't necessarily talk too much about in the general culture, and I think on most college campuses still, even though I think there's a wider acceptance, obviously, of mental health issues. I think there's a lot still that doesn't get explored. And we wanted to hear from various voices across the college that you might not get a chance to hear from otherwise, and particularly this intersection between mental health issues and culture and identity, and the pervasive stigma that can exist relative to people's cultural identities. So thanks again for doing this. I always let people know whatever you feel comfortable sharing is usually what works perfect. So let me know if you have any kind of questions as things come up, but yeah, looking forward to doing this.
Yeah.
So first off, Martina, the question is, did you grow up talking about mental or emotional issues? And if so, how? And if not, how you understood why you didn't talk about those things?
Yeah, not very much. So I grew up here in Maine. I'm an only child, and I am an only grandchild on both sides of my family. So that's a lot of only. And you know, I don't want to give the impression. I had a very supportive family. I had a lot of love. I was very lucky growing up. Very, very supported. But there was also just, an expectation that you kind of charge ahead and do things. It's also a generational thing, where there wasn't a lot of conversation about it. I came to Bowdoin in 93, graduated in 97, and we were starting to talk about it a lot more. And that was a really good thing, right?
Our counseling
family and also friends, right? Like,
okay.
My world was starting to talk about it a lot more. And I think that was a really, really good thing. And so we were starting to explore that a lot more, just family wise, and again, my broader world. I think, we didn't, again, not because it was taboo or anything. It wasn't something that my parents had really grown up with.
Do you know why the shift happened, Tina?
My parents got divorced, and I think my parents were both concerned that I needed to talk and I needed some support. So I think there was some concern there, that was something that was going to be helpful for me. But again, there was some discomfort around it, because it wasn't something that they had ever engaged with. It wasn't something that, again, there wasn't a norm. It wasn't the norm, I guess. Right. So, and so I think that's a credit, right? That there was some outreach and some sort of exploration into it, not a ton, but enough.
Right.
And also that I had been given the tools to find it for myself too, right?
Mhm.
So, I had been given the tools and the wherewithal to know myself enough to say, I need some help right now.
Yeah.
I need to go find this for myself. So,
How
so I
would you
think those,
describe those tools, Martina? Sorry.
yeah, no, please interrupt. It's totally fine. I don't know that I would have been able to identify them to you when I was 21
Sure.
or whatever I was, but I
Yeah.
knew that I didn't feel quite like myself. I didn't feel quite comfortable with myself. Now, when I look at my own kids, I can see when they're not feeling centered
Mhm.
regularly,
Yeah.
like on an ongoing basis. Everybody feels uncentered periodically, right?
Sure.
That's a normal thing.
Right.
But when it's an ongoing thing, I think that's a thing that they're just a little off kilter regularly. And that's what I really started to feel around 21, 22. And it was for a whole bunch of reasons. It wasn't just for, the family stuff and whatever. And I think that was something that I identified, and your office was really helpful, just so you know, your predecessors. And I just think, I've sort of identified all along after that having a larger group of, whether they're professional folks like yourself, but a larger group of people with whom you can relate in a whole bunch of different ways, professional help, but also friends and family and supports, and you can talk and be with genuinely and authentically is really just really important. And I think the pandemic has made that's where the pandemic has been really, really difficult, is how do you be authentic with people when you can't be with people? That's the part that has been, one of the hardest things. Being authentic by text, or being authentic by social media, or being authentic by Zoom. How do we have this meeting authentically is hard, and being able to expose that it just adds a layer that was already hard.
Yeah, I totally agree. It highlights the need for it, as well as the extra effort to
right?
get it.
Yep.
I think
I veered off there. Sorry.
No, it's beautifully on point. And you bring up I feel like a really good point that we try to, I think, communicate to students in counseling, that it sounds like as you were more aware of yourself and what challenges you were navigating, it tuned you into noticing it in other people, like your kids.
Huge.
But I imagine other people too. Like, it builds empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And the thing that I am most conscious of right now, in mental health and wellness, and however people feel well, because it's physical and mental, and it's all of that, is just, that authenticity, right? I worry so much. I mean, before we got on the call, we were joking a little bit about, I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. You're fine. I'm fine. We're all fine.
We're all fine.
And we say that, right? We're walking down the street and we say, how are you? I'm fine. You're fine. Great. Whatever. But we move through this life so quickly, and we are all busy, and right now we are super isolated. But even in non-COVID times, we can be going so quickly that we really are isolated. And there's this layer, and even just one generation later, I mean, I felt like I had to be perfect, and that was totally self-inflicted. My parents, everybody around me was saying, do the best you can. Like, self-inflicted perfectionism.
Yeah.
And now it's like 5 million times greater. I mean, I see it in our students, and I just want to like hold them and just be like, no. And I see it in my own kids, and I see it in their friends and all of that kind of thing. And I just, all of that pressure plus the isolation and all of that makes that need for authenticity and truth and being honest with someone, whether it's your counselor, whether it's your mom, whether it's your best friend, whether it's a stranger on the street, whatever, just be so much more important. I worry about that every single day. And as in our professional capacity in our office, we are in charge of keeping the grade records. So we see it with our students and our grades, right?
Yeah.
How important our grades have become as a marker.
Yeah.
And we all know, as we go through life, they become less important, but I get it. And how do we manage all of that, right, as input in our lives, and how do we sort of put it in their right places? It's important, but how do you put it in the right places so that you can manage all of that in your sort of daily life? Yeah. And I just really, I think about that a lot.
I do too. It's so
I know you
important.
do.
It's so well said. I think that'll resonate with so many people listening to this. First, your descriptors of like how fast-paced and busy and isolated, increasingly so, and perfectionistic.
Yeah.
We increasingly are, I think, very much in a way, I think, to contend with feelings of oftentimes, I think, powerlessness, like as a means of trying to control or feel a sense of control. Well, maybe we could just jump right into that. So I'm hearing you loud and clear that one maybe notable antidote is authenticity. Yeah, would you say more? Because I think this is such a crucial question that yes, we do get it, how important a certain level of excellence is. And I think we also all know, I think in our different respective roles, how much pressure a lot of our students are, and that we're seeing how much students are equating their sense of self with the grades and the GPAs and all of that.
I think what I do not have all the answers, and none of us do. And for some, that's sort of what I hold, right? Is I'll never have all the answers. And the only way we'll all get along is if we listen, really listen, not just stop talking so that we can wait for our turn to talk again.
Right. Right.
But listen. And I'm not a good listener. I'm a talker. Like I just, and so that's hard for me, is to like really just sit and listen and to hold that, and to really just, and to be, and to also, I think the other piece that I have, and I'm still learning it, is to know that I will always be learning. And so my grades, whether it's a grade like a school grade or a performance review or whatever, is I'm going to make those mistakes every single day, and that it is okay, right? I think one of the things that, my most humbling and one of the most fantastic experiences I've ever had is, we sort of joke in my office, right? Nobody when they're 4 years old says, I'm going to be a registrar when I grow up, right? Like that's not a job like fireman or doctor or whatever that people know about, right? Like it's just not. And that's fine. So how do you become a registrar, right? Like it's not, but it's a super cool job, and it's really interesting, and you get to be at kind of the center of a lot of really cool processes at the college. which is really fun, but it's also not one where unless you do it, people know what you do. People know you do transcripts and whatever.
Yeah.
And when I started working at Bowdoin, I was working in the Museum of Art, which I loved. I moved over to the registrar's office at a time when we needed to rearrange a couple of things and do there were some new processes and whatever. And I hadn't worked in a registrar's office before. So I came in not knowing a lot of those processes, but I did know how to rearrange processes. And so the college was like, okay, you know how to do this, so you can learn and so I knew how to, but that's really humbling, right? I came in and worked with the existing amazing staff, awesome staff, and they taught me how to do this. And that's super humbling. And also I learned a huge amount from them. So to do that kind of learning, a sense of humor is, everybody had to have a sense of humor because, and we also all learn from each other all the time. And we have a saying in the office called Nora, no one registrars alone, right? Because it's too complicated. So as long as you go about, and you could say that about life, right? No one does life alone. You can't.
Absolutely.
You can't. It's complicated and it's hard, and that's also okay, right? Right now, my husband is deployed. I have 2 kids. I'm doing this job. I don't know, the dog busted his ACL this weekend. Whatever, all the things are happening.
Yeah.
We have the pandemic going on. I'm not doing it alone. I can't. And as soon as I was able to say that, that's my authentic statement about this reality. And okay, so my neighbors helped me with my leaves this fall, and my other neighbor helps with cooking. And sometimes I need a mom timeout and my kids watch too much TV. And, I'm not perfect. And, so there's all these pieces, and that's my personal. And then there's the professional, where sometimes my staff, we have to get together and do a process all together because it's too complicated for any one of us to do it by ourselves. And that's okay. Yeah. The world doesn't end when we do that. And somehow when I was 15 or 20 or 25, it felt like the world was going to end if I said that, and somehow the world didn't end. Yeah. When my neighbors helped me pick up my leaves and I didn't rake them all by myself, or I took a mom time out, or my kids watched 3 hours of TV, which goes against every guideline that they tell you, but somehow the world didn't end. And I think that piece for all of us humans is really something that is really important.
I think it's one of the most important lessons. And it's crucial to, in my experience, the therapeutic process, like what it takes to sort of recognize that you need help. That you're not alone. But would you agree, as you're saying this, would you agree that it's a really kind of challenging, confusing, even juxtaposition of both like life experience of feeling alone, but also like we're inherently not, and we can't, like you said, we can't be.
Yep.
But navigating those two sides.
Oh, it's awful. Yep. It's awful. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I would say for all of its foibles and for all of its shortcomings, social media has the good side of connecting us, right? I'm of an age where, I remember the very inception of social media, and I remember letter writing before that.
Yeah.
What is letter writing? And I remember, when I studied away from Bowdoin, my junior year was when email was its I don't know, remember we had polar mail or something at Bowdoin. I can't
Oh, yeah.
remember what it was called, bear mail, or I don't remember. But like it was like this thing, we only had it on campus. But then when I was studying away, we had like you had to go to this one computer in this one lab, and you could kind of send an email and it would take a while. And like, it was like this very sort of arcane process. And so now, with some high school friends, I have this whole group chat and whatever. So there are these people I can reach out to at the drop of a hat, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's not perfect by any means, right? But it's something.
Yeah.
And that's amazing, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. And, again, not perfect. And in this pandemic, when the kids are, remote and it's messy and they're on screens all day and all this kind of stuff, at least we have the remote piece, right? Again, it's not what I would have picked. I would have picked regular Bowdoin. I would have picked regular school for my kids. But it's something. And we can make it what we're going to make of it, So I feel like the connections are, at least they're connections. And you can make them as authentic as you want to,
But yeah, I agree. Like trying something. I as you mentioned, I actually just started up a plan with 3 of my old. We're all male identified. It was sort of intentional to do that.
Yeah.
And that we're going to meet every 2 weeks online. And sort of intentionally talk about real things and real issues.
We just lost a friend. My last 2 years of high school, I attended a boarding school, and we just lost a classmate.
I'm sorry.
It was really hard. And on the flip side, though, which was really interesting to me, the day after we found out that we had lost her, because of all of this Zooming that we're doing, and we're all used to it, we were able to have a impromptu Zoom class, get together. That like over 100, it was 100 people came to it. I don't know, 75 people came to it, within a couple hours. And that's the kind of thing that sort of is really gratifying, right? Like it was, it was just people talking about how they remembered her and all of that kind of thing. And since then we've had several more and a lot of, chat via various platforms. And that's the kind of thing where when I step back from my grief of losing her, just that ability to talk about her and talk with various people and, the processing that can happen. And again, if you choose authenticity in that moment and, forget the platform, yes, it's digital, but whatever, it's real. If you choose real. And that's been really something from my perspective. And again, for the mental health piece, I think, for people processing, again, all over the world, all over the time zones, all over different industries, whatever, everything. That kind of ability to create togetherness, even in this really strange world we're living in. And really, intentionality is something to be celebrated. So
I was just going to say it was sort of odd in a way that each of us, when we got on this call, my friends and I, all sort of share the sentiment that we hadn't realized how much we needed whatever we just experienced with each other until it happened. And it's odd that we can sort of tune that out to a certain degree. Like how much
Well,
we need this part of life and just kind of go on, automatic pilot and just kind of get through the day.
well, there's a lot of busy, right? I mean,
Right.
we mentioned that at the beginning. There's a lot to do. And whether we're students, where it's, the homework and the schoolwork, and and there's, extracurriculars, and there's, all the things you got to do. You got to get it all done. And, or whether, it's more sort of my frame of reference of, whatever, got to get the dog up and down the stairs, I got to make the lunches, I got to,
Right.
and I got the full-time job, and I've got all these things that you can lose sight of that.
And even self-care can start to be just part of the.
What is self-care? I mean,
if that even exists. Yeah.
What's that? But there's little, and I think this is the other piece is, self-care can get blown up into these like, well, you have to go for a spa weekend for self-care. Well, that's not, I mean, I walk the dog for 20 minutes in the morning, and that's self-care, right? Like I can stretch for 5 minutes, and that's self-care. And that,
Absolutely.
I can do a mom timeout for 5 minutes to read my book, and that's self-care.
That's real.
And that's really important. And I think again that's for me in my world. And that may not be what someone else needs to do when they're 80 or when they're 20 or whatever. Sure. But again, the mini bites of whatever that is something that I've been trying to encourage with my kids, and at whatever age that is,
right,
and whatever that means to you,
because it changes too over time.
It changes. Yep.
Can I ask you, Martina, how would you describe your more or less like your process, how you got from the more self-inflicted perfectionism
Oh yeah.
to what sounds like a very different kind of.
I was something else. Holy moly. I remember being in second grade and being in my parents' room at 11:30 at night in tears, like the tear, the you can't breathe tears kind of thing, because I hadn't finished something. And my mother was like, what did you not fit? Like, it's second grade. Like she must have, now that I'm a mom, I can only imagine what my own mother was thinking. I should ask her, really. She may not even remember this moment, but I have a distinct memory. And her bringing me to school the next day, because I had been so upset, and us like going through my desk, and it was like a Halloween coloring sheet. Like it was such a nothing. It was like a for fun thing. It wasn't even an
assignment or something.
A school thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of like anxiety. And now we have words for it, right? Like I don't think anybody called it that at that point. I think it was just, I really had this like, I was really on the, I was very anxious about my grades and really wanted to be, I think, for me, I hit a point in my life where I really I couldn't control it all. I mean, and for me, and this is not for everybody. I ended up with, some bigger jobs and 2 kids and a husband in the Navy and a house and dogs. And I was like, well, I'm either going to try and control all of this, and it's going to really I'm going to not be well, and my kids are going to suffer for it, and I'm going to suffer for it. And it's going to be a real mess, like a really big mess. Or I can have a sense of humor, do the best I can, and let people see that I'm not perfect, including me not seeing that I'm not perfect. And we can have a sense of humor about that. And I can do my best and try to control the things that actually matter here. And that was a long process. And the sense of humor, I'm going to keep saying that.
Yeah.
So you don't have a sense of humor about this stuff, then boy, because a lot of it's, I mean, I know sometimes this is really hard to see, but some of it is really funny. Right. There are times when it's all going down. One kid has used up all the shampoo out of the bottle in the shower. Like it's all over everything. The other kid is yelling about not having the right clothes, and the dog is whatever. Like we just got a puppy. She's peeing on the floor, and but everybody's alive. Everybody's okay, basically. Right.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Basically.
So maybe you could say my standards fell. maybe that's what it came to. I'm not sure. But I think that's also like I started to sort of see what's
Well, something, I mean, that's often
really
the case, I
important
think,
here.
when students are coming to our office, it's like sooner or later we have to sort of break the news that something's got to give. And
Something's got to give. Yeah. And like, my kids spilling water at dinner or whatever, like it's just water. It's going to be okay. And I didn't want them to have that second grade moment that I had. I think that was also a really big part of it. Was like, I felt awful. I really felt awful for such a long time that they don't need to feel this way. And there were these moments
based on standards.
that you start to really realize like the world carries on.
Right. I know.
Whoa,
it's very humbling.
The world keeps going. And, even in the biggest stuff. I mean, and some of my other, I also, one of the study away places that I went was Ukraine, Kiev, Ukraine in 1995. That was also very humbling, right? That was a different, 100% different world than the United States for a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. And we got stuck. The Clinton White House was had shut down all services. So like we got stuck. We didn't have the right visas. Like those were experiences where I was like, oh, hey, look, homework is important, but I might not get out of this country.
Yeah.
So you kind like the perspectives get larger as you grow up. Yeah. And I think those are my husband deployed to Afghanistan. Those start to get bigger. And I don't, I wish I hadn't had to have gotten older to start to settle down a little bit, I guess. But like
that is the question, whether or not the perspective can come
earlier.
Yeah.
I hope it can for my kids. And I hope, when students come to our office, I try really hard to, because it's real. It is 100% real, that the fear and the anxiety and the worry, I don't want to downplay it at all, because it is real and I get it. But I also want to take that awful feeling away, because I hate that it's there.
I feel like part of what we're saying, and I really believe it myself, that we pass along to our kids what we know, what we've learned, what we've experienced. And I agree. I think I share the same sentiment that all my parents knew around a certain amount of mental emotional health was what they knew, and so I got what I got accordingly, and then it and then it evolves.
Right.
But yeah, similarly, I do have hope about it. This is a broad question, but yeah, how would you currently in your life, how would you define what wellness, what health and wellness means to you now?
I think it's a tension, actually. And I think that's hard in some ways. I wish I had more time to think about it and focus on it a little bit. But on the flip side, what we're talking about, one does the best they can, and that's also good. And so being comfortable with that and being, embracing what you can do and embracing and taking from what you can do is also really, really important. So, and not always hoping for more or grasping for more or looking for more, because then you're never comfortable with what you have or can do or whatever. So I try to strike about, so physically I do a lot of walking. We live on an island. So that's lovely. And we have 2 dogs. So there's always walking, always. And my children are 6 and 13. So there's running, running and walking and in the summer swimming. And, so physically there's a lot of activity.
Thanks.
Mentally, I try really hard to find, and they're simply moments, because as I noted, two dogs, 6, 13, single momming right now, registrar, homeschooling, all the things. But a few moments of quiet. And whether that's just standing in my kitchen for literally a moment where nothing is going on.
Right.
Maybe in my driveway, might be. That's okay. That's okay.
I know those moments well.
That's fine. I kind of miss my commute sometimes, right?
Yeah, sure.
That used to be a place where I could get a little bit of just a breather. But those I try when I have those moments to really focus on them and not let them be fleeting and not miss them. And not sort of be on to the next thing, to grasp them and hold them and then be on to the next thing. Because even just a moment is really, really important. I think the other piece that I really grown to appreciate is, and I know, it sounds like a cliche, but the controlling what you can control is really important, right? There's a whole bunch of frustrations around us, and there always will be. Always. Those are not going away. They'll change, right? My daughter doesn't like this about one teacher or whatever, and I keep being like, yep. And you'll find the next one next year.
Yeah.
Find the things you really like, find the things you can live with at this. It's just not worth getting up in a bunch about, because they're always going to be there. And if you can't control them, just let them live in a cloud over here.
Right.
Because they're going to be there.
And like you said, where you put your attention.
Put your energy and your intention over here where you can make that difference. Because it just, all of that, I really feel like it really is like negative energy. And also just, like Sisyphus, right? Pushing the rock up the hill over and over and over again. Right. And sometimes, every once in a while, it is worth it, right? If there is a hill and you can't let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Great. Do it. I will drive you. I will be there with you, and sometimes we need to do that. Yeah, but let's pick and choose. Let's pick and choose those moments, because it is not every moment, because you drive yourself, you're going to go over the edge, and you can't do that. Yeah. And then you conserve energy for when it really does matter. And that's what so that's that intentionality is what I've been trying really hard to just, to live with. And I get that it sounds really cliche, and I get people will be like, oh, that's very, it also sounds, I also recognize that it sounds privileged. Mm-hmm. And I feel privileged to be able to say it. And I don't, I want to acknowledge that really clearly, that I feel but I also want to acknowledge that these are moments literally in a driveway or in a Hannaford parking lot or in a, sometimes it's when I am arguing with my 6-year-old about brushing her teeth, I just stop arguing.
Yeah.
Sometimes she doesn't brush her teeth. Sometimes I decide it's better. I probably just outed myself. I'm going to call from the dentist, but sometimes it's better that she not have the argument and I not have the argument, and I choose the moment.
Right.
And I give her the moment, And so I hope it doesn't sound
And then we can-
overly privileged.
And then we can
Like
start again.
I hope it doesn't sound overly privileged. Like I'm creating this like beautiful space and things like that. Cause literally it's like in my dirty bathroom that I haven't cleaned in 2 weeks or whatever, where I'm choosing that. So I want to.
No, I appreciate your point. I think, right. I mean, based on our privileged locations, each of us struggles
Yes.
to different extents of what we can control and what we can't. And I think I would also argue that there was probably for many, if not all of us, like space for us to, I think what you're communicating, like to discover, like when is enough, and like,
And it's
when
and that's
am I
it.
trying to do
Choosing
too
it.
much when we live in a
Choose it.
culture that is all about
Doing too
excess and
much.
doing too much.
Yeah. And I think that was what I felt was like having a little bit of ownership of this. And I hope everyone can have, again, even if it's in the grocery store parking lot, that moment of ownership of that. Stare at the lettuce for a minute. It's cool. It's green in this moment of, of ownership of that, a moment. And I think that piece, I think is, and that we all really have something to contribute. Every single one of us.
What you just said in the grocery, that made me think of, do you know David Foster Wallace's graduation speech he gave called "This is Water"? It's exactly to that point.
Yeah. And I mean, we all say these cliche things, it's the simple things, blah, 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 but it is.
Well, for context, maybe I could ask you, I'm looking at our time, we probably just have maybe a couple more questions I can ask you, but anything you would say here, Martina, about how the influence of who you are and where you come from on your current relationship with mental health? And in a way, I guess I'm asking sort of for better or worse, like, how does who you are and where you come from affect, your relationship with health?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that well, it's interesting because I grew up in New England and I am married to a New Englander, and we both have these very like tough, if you looked at the outside, it'd be like these tough New England roots. I'm going to talk about it. We're fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
And the other piece of it that is really, really interesting too is we're a military family. So, if you talk to my daughters, you'd hear it in them. They'll be like, yeah, dad's gone, but we're good. We got it. We're helping mom. We've got it. We're helping mom. That like stoic, like, and it's not like there's a piece of that that's not a bad thing, right? Like there is a part of both my kids that they're independent and they are very strong-willed, and me too, right? People look at me and they're like, gee, I wonder where they got that. And I'm proud of them for that. And I'm proud of it in myself. And my parents raised me with that, and I'm glad of it. There's a flip side to that where I worry about it a little bit because it can go too much to that side of, of not sharing enough. We're not knowing when the, I'll say stoicism or whatever, you're kind of covering up when it's gone too far. And I think there's got to be some middle ground there. And I think that's the part where it's always a work in progress for me. I go between knowing when I need some balance, when I need a friend, when I need some help, when I need, to talk to someone, when whatever. And when I'm good, I'm fine. I got it. It's totally okay. It's fine. Got it. It's good. We're good. Got it. 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 If I just say it often, I totally got it. And I resort to that sort of like in, what I was born with, and sort of what I feel like I have time for, right? Like my natural like instinct, I was too busy. I got it, and I think that's part of where the tension comes in, and knowing, well, what could I do to just alleviate the pressure valve a little bit? And maybe it's really just a driveway moment. Maybe it's just this doesn't have to be, this may not be a whole, it may not be, 3 hours. It may be simply be just a 5-minute breath. But I think that's where I'm always sort of in the middle there with a little bit of a, that old like devil and angel on the shoulders.
A good friend recently reminded me of the real value of just waiting and time, and that like 24 or 48 hours can make such a difference.
Yes. Yeah.
To the intensity of whatever might be going on at that time.
Yeah. Well, there's that perspective thing again, right?
Yeah,
where,
exactly.
Can gain that. Yeah.
Which sounds again like can sound really superficial or
totally. But it can be real.
Yeah.
Darn it. Gosh. God, my parents were right. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe lastly, Martina, along these lines, anything from your experience you want to share, what kind of message you would like to communicate to our students? Maybe just about coping in general, coping with the times we're living in right now.
I think the one thing that I really, 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 really want to say is that nobody here is alone, and we are all here for each other. And that everyone's doing a great job, and really, like, for real. And that if there's anything I can do for anyone, I'm here.
Thank you.
I'm here. And I don't want anyone going through a moment or a 5 minutes or an hour or a day feeling like they're by themselves without reaching out to someone, whoever that is, because we can't do it alone. We're not meant to do it alone, even in a pandemic. That's why Zoom was invented.
I really appreciate you saying that, Martina, and I hope you don't mind me acknowledging that you reached out to me for this conversation.
I did it on purpose. I did it on purpose, and I did it because I have dealt with mental health issues my whole life. Obviously, second grade, 11:30, and I had a real at one moment, and I found a counselor who was amazing and has helped me through a lot. So, and then in between me reaching out to you and then having our appointment, I lost this friend, and it was to suicide. And I just, no one is alone, and we just, this is just too important, and nobody, we can't, we just, it's the worst. And you guys are doing a great job over in counseling, and
thank you. You too.
And our students are just, every single one of them is just so important, and every single one of them is working so hard, and we are all here for them. So that's my biggest message.
Thank you so much for expressing that and being here and taking this time and putting your
thank you for doing all you're doing, for goodness sakes. My God.
I'm happy to do it. Honored. Thanks, Martina.
Let me know if there's anything else I can do.
just talk and get to know you this way. It's
Yeah, I know. We don't get a chance to, which is,
right.
Thank you for your time, Roland, and thank Janie. I don't know if she's still behind the curtain.
will.
but- Yeah.
I will. Have a great rest of the day. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.